Howdy, everyone. Okay, so let's get caught up on the latest baffle work that I've been doing. So let's see. You can see here that this seal is now in place. This, of course, is the left side inlet area. Underneath here, well, you can see some of it right here. This is the metal, the aluminum. I don't know what you want to call it. It's basically an aluminum reinforcement that goes around underneath the cowling. The rubber is sandwiched between the cowling and this shaped metal piece. This piece is shaped basically to match the contour of the cowling. The rubber fits in between. It's basically just a backing plate, really. You can see that this is a 1/2 inch in length, or 1/2 inch wide, my metal piece. It's a little confusing when you look at the drawing and when you read the written instructions, because I think it's depicted as 1/2 inch and also potentially an inch wide, but I just went with half because this is the raw material that came with my baffle kit. This was actually in the kit and this was designated for this purpose, so I went ahead and used it. You can see I've got my baffles and seals in place now around the back of the spinner, and it's just like you fit everything else. It's a little bit of trial and error. You have to shape it, and I use the, just like I had done on the other baffles, I used the paper clip on the metal to get the height for the, when the cowling's in place. And then trimmed it and then started fitting the rubber. Be mindful when you're fitting the rubber seals. Be mindful of the airflow that's coming in and airflow that's going to be coming into this whole area. You want your baffles to lay in such a way that the air can't get between them. So make sure that your overlaps make sense, like there's an overlap here. Here's the other side. I've got an overlap here, got an overlap here. This is, of course, the seal on the right side. Everything overlaps and everything seems to seal nicely with the top cowling. Now you want to be very careful when you're doing this area here. These front baffles, there's a lot of multiple curves, and there's the interaction when the top cowling is on. This opening right here in the top cowling, this corner here, where these baffles, this part of the baffle rides on the fiberglass inlet piece, and then it has to transition into this curved area as well. And this side doesn't fit as nice as I would like it to. The other side fits better. But you just want to make sure that this seal provides a seal to the inlet ramp and also around the corner of the actual cowling inlet. And it's the same thing on this corner here. Be very careful when you're working with those. Take your time and go slow. And again, it's a lot of put it on, take it off, trim it, put it on, take it off, trim it, put it on. There's a ton of that. So that's just how it goes. But if you want to do it correctly and you want to get a really nice baffle fit and a baffle seal, I don't know how else to do it. So now I am back on this baffle. You can see I've already got it drilled. I'm going to go ahead and fit my rubber to it, cut the rubber out, rivet it in place. And I'm getting low on this baffle material because I've been using it to fill, or I've been using it on the part of the baffle that wraps around the cylinder. In my other videos, I talked about how I use this material to put on the baffles and then pulled that rubber tight up against the fins of the cylinder. Since I've been doing that, I don't know that I'm going to have enough rubber to do this side, the other side, and I need to do these front baffles this assembly here underneath, it also has the aluminum that wraps around the cylinder fins on the front. So I still need to do this baffle, the other side like this, and then both sides, the aluminum where it wraps underneath. I don't think I've got enough rubber material to do that. So my plan is to do this one. If I've got enough rubber left, I'll do this front wrap area for the fins. And then I think I'll probably have to order some more to finish it. But I want to do this side first, because once I get this side done, I can go ahead and wrap the aluminum underneath the fins of the cylinders and pull them together and safety wire them. Once I have that done, then I can tie up all the loose ends back here. I still got, I had to take my dipstick out. I have it safety wired back in place, but I've got a couple of ground attachments that need to be done down here. And I have to install my oil cooler and the oil cooler lines and all that stuff. So I want to get this side finished baffle wise and safety wired underneath. Then I can come back here and finish up this corner. Okay, so I'm going to do some more work on this, and I will talk to you guys later. Get another angle here. Get a top-down perspective here real quick. All right, I'll talk to you guys here in a little bit. Howdy, everyone. Okay, so here we are yet again, and guess what we're doing? We are doing more baffles. Yippee. Okay, so you can see that I've got the majority of the baffles are now in place. These are now attached permanently, well, semi-permanently. I don't plan on taking them back off until I need to, hopefully never. So I'm calling this permanently installed at the moment. The obviously I've got the black rubber seals are in place. I've got my speed tape in place like I have talked about in the other videos. What I'm doing now is trying to seal everything as best that I can. I still need to do some final trimming in the front here and here on both sides. On the cowling itself, there are the two pieces of rubber on the lower cowling. Those are held in place with the aluminum strip. I still need to do some trimming on the aluminum strip. They're pretty tall. I'll probably trim them down, edge finish and all that stuff. I still have those little details to do. But right now what I'm doing is I'm putting on the forward side panel of the baffle. And once I get that in place, I went ahead and did my safety wiring underneath to bring the curved parts of the baffle that wrap around the cylinders. I've got that done on this side, and I've got that done on the other side. I just have to fit the forward side panel on over there. So once I had that done, I'm starting to do the sealing of all the other areas that air can bleed through. And I'm doing that with red RTV. There are some better products out there, but the red RTV has been used by many in the past. It happens to be something that I have on hand. I don't have to run out and buy new stuff, so I'm using red RTV. So like I said, this forward side panel was put in place, and the lighting may not be that great, but let me show you what I have going on under here. With the side panel in place, this side is now finished. So I went ahead and I've got my wraparound areas like this. This is what gets safety wired. And I've talked about it before. The inner cylinder baffle here, if I can get my hand in here, I talked about the modifications I had done to this, where I had added these bolts so that I can run my safety wire. This is another modification, just adding a piece of stainless steel bar. So the safety wire wraps around the bar and it pulls on the bar instead of pulling directly on the aluminum. And so these were shaped to fit the cylinder, and then they're held in place with the safety wire. So I've got this safety wire going to here, and then on the back side, it's the same thing. Same with this fin, if you want to call it that. This curved area here, another bar, and that is safety wired to the baffle using this bolt here. And it's the same thing on the back side. Here is the wraparound here. And you might be able to see here the bar with the safety wires attached to, and then that runs across to this bolt right here. And you'll notice that I have globs of RTV on both of those ends. I've got the glob here on between with the safety wire, where the safety wire wraps around the bar and the bar itself, and then the whole assembly to the aluminum. That's just to help limit relative movement between those three pieces. It may not be necessary. It just felt better to me to kind of tie these three pieces together, the aluminum, the bar, and the safety wire, so there's no relative movement between them as much as possible, so things are nice and secure. The other thing that you may notice is the red RTV. So basically, in a nutshell, what I was doing was I would shine a light up from underneath, a bright flashlight. I would stick up in all these different areas, wherever I can get the flashlight wedged up in here. And then looking down from on top, you can see where light was coming through. And I would just try to seal those as best I can. One area is back here behind the oil dipstick tube. Back in this area here, there's a lot of leak points. These are very difficult to get to, so the RTV looks like a mess. I couldn't get back in here as good as I wanted to and try to clean that up. But I've got a lot of RTV back here. I've got some RTV here around the engine mount here. I've RTV'd all of the side areas, so you can see here. You can see where I've got my rubber seal that I've talked about earlier. You can see a little bit of it here as well. But even on the edge, after this was together, after this was put in and safety wired, I still smeared some RTV along this edge, because you want the air to go from the top. You want it to go down and around through the cylinder fins. You don't want it to come down and then bleed out the side. And you can see that really well here. So I also have the rubber in here, but just to be sure that no air can escape out the side, you want it to follow this contour all the way around the bottom. I went ahead and sealed this. But I've got RTV everywhere. I've got RTV here. I've got it here. I've got it up underneath here. You can see, even though I have the rubber grommet, I have this tube sealed. You can see RTV in here. I've got RTV back in here. I've got a ton of it around this inner cylinder baffle. You can see around all these edges all the way around are sealed. Again, even though there's a grommet here, I put RTV. You can see some RTV here. Anywhere, and I mean anywhere, that air can escape. I've got RTV up in here and all through here around this edge, all around through here. Things like this, these relief holes where they bend the aluminum to keep the aluminum from cracking, you want to seal those. So that's very tedious, and it's very difficult to get to. You know, sealing, trying to get RTV way back in here when you've got alternators and exhaust and intake tubes and electrical connections. When you have all that mess in the way, that's very tedious. But I spent about 2 hours just doing RTV just on this side of the engine. So again, for me, it was nothing more than shining a light up from underneath and then looking from the top, and wherever light was coming through that shouldn't be, I tried to seal it shut. So now from the top of the engine, you can see I've got RTV down in here. You can't see it, you won't be able to see it, but buried way down in some of these areas, I've got RTV. I don't know if that will show up either. Way down there, again, on that inner cylinder baffle down there is RTV. I've got a bunch of RTV in here. All kinds of stuff. So I'm just trying to absolutely maximize my cooling because these baffles have a lot of holes in them. I've got a hole here. I've got this mammoth hole here for my oil cooler. Another cooling hole here. On the other side, of course, I've got this whole intake with the filter. Cooling hole. Another big cooling hole. So I need those, in my mind, to cool my other accessories. And if I'm losing all of that to other things, that air is not being used to cool the engine. So to maximize everything, I'm trying to seal every crack and crevice that I can get to, because I need maximum air potential in here to keep everything cool. So now my plan for today is I'm going to, what am I going to do? I guess I'll put the side baffle on, and I've already got my bends around the cylinders. Those are done and they've been safety wired, but you can see that there's no RTV. I haven't done any RTV at all. So you can see the rubber gasket here. This is going to get covered up with RTV. I got to RTV my safety wire. So I'm just going to put the sidewall on, and then I'm going to start sealing everything that I can here like I did the other side. Once I'm done with the RTV underneath and inside, I'm going to come back and revisit my seals, because once this side piece gets on, I may put some speed tape where the rubber seals overlap each other. I got to put some speed tape there. I'm going to address some of these corners, things of that nature. After all of that is done, I've got some reassembly work to do. I've got some temperature probes that I've disconnected to make getting to the safety wire easier. Here's another temperature probe. I've got some of these drain back lines. This one's loose because I have to move these out of the way. Same thing on the other side. I've got some wires disconnected, some ground leads, things of that nature. All that's got to be put back together. Everything's got to be torqued back to the way that it was. After all of that is then done, I think I'm going to, before I install the snorkel, I have to work on the alternate air flap thing. So I think that will probably be next. One thing that I did learn in this whole process is if I were to do this again, I would hang the engine and put on all my accessories, at least the ones in the back that are going to require cooling. And then I would start working on the baffles. And you need to have certain things in place before you work on the baffles, because you need to know where to put your different holes. Everybody's setup is different. So your cooling holes, your spark plug penetrations, any holes that need to be put in the baffles, you need to have certain things installed so you know where to put your holes, what makes the most sense. But I would recommend doing the baffle and cowling work as soon as you can without all of this stuff hanging up underneath. if the exhaust was out, if the intake tubes were out, if the feedback lines were out, if some of these fuel lines and electrical connections were not here. Doing the baffles up underneath here would have been so much easier, and the RTV sealing would be so much easier. But I didn't think that far ahead. I had all this stuff installed. I really didn't want to take it apart. I'm okay with taking a line off or pulling out a temperature probe, but I didn't want to drop the exhaust and different things. So just a heads up, try to do some of this stuff sooner than later before you populate everything and then you can't reach what you need to reach. Okay, so like I said, sidewall, more RTV, revisit some of these other areas, make sure everything is fine and sealed and speed taped or whatever. And then I think I'll move on to putting the alternate air source hole flapper thing on the snorkel. All right, that's it for now. I will talk to you guys later.